Back in February, Daniel Andrews locked down the state of Victoria on the back of 12 positive COVID cases of community transmission. As we go to air tonight, and the Victorian Government Cabinet is meeting at 7 o'clock to discuss a lockdown, Victoria has 15 confirmed community virus cases, and understandably, 6.5 million residents of the state are on a knife edge, with the acting Premier today refusing to rule out shutting down for a record fourth time.
I cannot rule out taking some further action, but we'll update people as soon as we know. It's fair to say that the next 24 hours are going to be particularly critical.
This is without a doubt the most dysfunctional state in the country, with the most incompetent government in Australia's history. A Premier still on leave, a police minister put in charge of hotel quarantine last Christmas, who's been out of the critical responsibilities of that portfolio longer than she's been in them, given she too is on health leave. In today's media conference, Victoria's Health Minister Martin Foley kept pushing his 4-point COVID action battle plan. Well, it's not exactly confidence-inspiring. Take a listen.
Getting vaccinated, if you are eligible, is the single most important thing you can do to protect yourself, your loved ones, and the community. So too does QR code checking at venues. So too does checking exposure sites. So too does getting tested if you display even the slightest of symptoms.
All right, let's take a look at each of those in turn. Number one.
Getting vaccinated, if you are eligible, is the single most important thing you can do to protect yourself, your loved ones, and the community.
Number one, vaccinated, he says, get vaccinated, sure. But even if already jabbed, older Australians, old Victorians won't be properly protected until they get their second dose. And again, I dispute this idea of vaccine hesitancies. There's AstraZeneca hesitancy, and that's an entirely different thing. And the federal government could fix it overnight if it just allowed our most vulnerable choice of vaccine, AZ, or the less blood clot risky option of Pfizer. I might add, let's not forget the Prime Minister, when he got his jab, even though he's over 50 and should have got AZ, he got Pfizer. Number two.
So too does QR code checking at venues.
QR codes. QR codes are a joke in Victoria. Foley says they're critical. Do it everywhere, he says. Important that everybody uses the new government-built QR code system, he says. But that too is a case of do as I say, not as I do. Take a look at this story from the Australian's Rachel Baxendale, confirming that Victoria's own Parliament building still hasn't changed over to the system that the government has mandated for business and everywhere else. QR codes in Melbourne are a joke. They're not enforced. I've been in New South Wales and ACT. It is a totally different regimes, and MPs in Victoria, they aren't even using the right system. And this is what makes contact tracing in Victoria a shambles. Despite the taxpayer millions thrown at redesigning the whole system last year, they still haven't got it right. Number three.
So too does checking exposure sites.
Well, check those exposure sites, says Foley. Well, we knew this last Friday. Again, there's problems because the Labor government was forced to admit that it had named the wrong supermarket in the wrong suburb in the highly infectious area of Epping as a Tier 1 exposure site. And today, listen to this.
When did you find out you were an exposure site?
Probably about an hour and a half after opening my doors this morning. Just through customers and friends and family, just my phone was going off saying you're all on the news, everything okay, and that's when a customer said you're listed as one of the exposure sites.
So the health department didn't tell you?
No. So no, I still haven't heard anything from. I presume it's the DHHS that's supposed to. I'm not sure.
Tier 1 infection site, didn't get told by the government, didn't get told by health. It was his customers walking in the door when he should have been shut, telling him he was at risk. And number 4 in Foley's COVID battle plan,
so too does getting tested if you display even the slightest of symptoms.
Get tested. Now, Talkback Radio today was full of callers waiting in line at testing stations, some for upwards of 5 hours. At every turn, Victoria's battle plan is flawed. Its systems are broken and the state is fearing yet another lockdown tonight. By the time I arrived at the studio, there were already reports of panic buying. The Herald Sun has been reporting all afternoon that the Andrews government is considering a snap 5-day lockdown, and at 7 o'clock there'll be a state cabinet meeting to decide our fate. Now, in Canberra, federal Labor politicians tried to swing in behind their Victorian mates and, with an election looming, make this all about Scott Morrison.
The current Melbourne COVID outbreak has been linked to a man who caught the virus while in hotel quarantine in South Australia. If the Prime Minister had fulfilled his responsibility for creating a safe, national, purpose-built quarantine system, wouldn't Australians be safer today?
Well, good try, Richard Marles. Sticking up for your Labor mates down here, your favourite friend Daniel Andrews. No one is buying it, because for far too long we've all heard about the promises of a so-called gold standard in Victoria that's anything but. This latest outbreak has not been caused by a slow vaccine rollout. It's been caused by a broken testing and tracing regime. It's just not up to the job, can't even cope with minor outbreaks that Sydney would take in its stride. I can't adequately express to you tonight the anger and frustration of Victorians. They've had enough. We've had enough. They feel abandoned and they wonder when on earth this will end. But it's true, isn't it? We get the government we vote for. Maybe next time people won't be so quick to vote in an incompetent, hard-left tyrant and his absolute D-grade team of ministers.